Getting to the TSA, here's the question. Now, the TSA, if you recall, has cited the supremacy clause of the U.S. Constitution as its authority to do basically anything it wants. This is why the TSA is now conducting searches at high school prom dances. Yeah, the TSA reaching up the dresses and down the pants of your teenage daughters and sons. Seriously, at high school dances, this is what's really going on. They could be searching you at shopping malls, at sporting events, at bus stations, not just airports. And they claim that they have absolute power to do that. They do not recognize the limits of power that they should recognize. So the question that I bring to you today, right here on the Alex Jones Show, is what are the limits of power to the TSA? Is there a document somewhere that limits the power? Does the TSA admit that it has any boundaries whatsoever to the things that it could do? Now, those of you out there who are constitutional scholars will, of course, rightly mention that there are already documents that limit the TSA's power and authority. And those documents, well, two of them are, of course, the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And these set out very specific limits to the TSA's power. Specifically the Fourth Amendment, and you could argue also the 10th Amendment, states' rights should limit federal power. But the TSA doesn't recognize any of that. It says the Fourth Amendment basically is null and void. Essentially, that's what it's saying. Now, if the TSA follows this line of non-reasoning, this tyrannical philosophy of absolute power, you have to wonder, where could it go? And in considering that, I penned a top 10 list last night. This is posted up on prisonplanet.com. It's also posted on naturalnews.com. 10 things the TSA could do if its power is not limited. And I'm going to go through this list with you right here. But I want you to understand that these are not just pie-in-the-sky exaggerations. These are logical progressions of what the TSA could do if it doesn't recognize limits to its own power. Number one, it could start conducting house-to-house searches. Without any warrants, without any justification, just like the Indiana police have now threatened to do because of the state Supreme Court decision there, the TSA could be doing this, all in the name of security. That's right. Open your door, sir. Open your door, ma'am. We're coming in to protect you from terrorists. Got a warrant? No, we don't need a warrant. We're the TSA. They could shut down your state's highways, railroads, or airports at any time. They've already threatened to do that in Texas, to shut down all of the airports in the state of Texas, to essentially blockade air traffic in and out of the state. That's an act, I believe, of economic terrorism, or at least it's a threat of economic terrorism. The TSA could do this to any state. They could threaten this in order to get their way with those states, to make sure that they have absolute power to do whatever they want, which could include house-to-house searches. Number three, they could conduct body cavity searches at polling stations. Now, I apologize. I'm not going to make this too graphic, but think about it. They're already doing lewd, obscene pat-downs. They could extend this to polling stations and say, before you vote, you got to come in and submit to a complete body cavity search. You know, hey, you want to vote today? There's only one candidate on the poll today, and that's Mr. Ben Dover, if you'll allow me to put in that bit of satire. But it's not funny, because they could literally be doing this. They could be doing this. They're already violating our bodies, and they're violating our constitutional rights. They could take this even further. Number four, they could search parking lots for cars that contain Ron Paul bumper stickers, and then just impound those vehicles under suspicion that those people are dangerous patriots. Oh my goodness. If you have a Ron Paul bumper sticker on your car, must be dangerous, because you think for yourself. That's what the TSA believes. Number five, the TSA could begin carrying firearms. They could actually say, hey, we're going to act like law enforcement officers, even though we're not sworn law enforcement officers, even though we have no training on firearms or the safe use of firearms or the safe use of force against the public. They have no training on that, or minimal training. They could demand to start carrying firearms. Can you imagine what these people would do? They're already planting cocaine in your luggage. They're already feeling you up and feeling you down, putting you down, feeling you up. They're messing with you in every way they can think of. Can you imagine if they have guns in your face doing it at the same time? It won't be long before the TSA is starting to ask for those guns, I believe. That's going to be a very scary day in America if we don't stop this. before that happens. Number 6, they could demand to install TSA representatives in local sheriff's offices and police departments. Now, the KGB did this. Hitler did this. He had his SS, which were not just military but political spies, installed in offices all around the German Empire at that time. The TSA could demand this as well. Hey, we're going to have a TSA representative, right, in your local sheriff's office just to make sure that you're on board with our anti-terrorism efforts, which really mean clamping down on the rights and the freedoms of the American people. Number 7, the TSA could announce a fee collection mandate where when you go through security, you got to slip them a $20 bill. That's right. You got to pay for a pat down. I'm not sure. Some people might actually want to pay for that, but most wouldn't. This could get into some crazy realms. Maybe some of these TSA agents would get tips. I doubt it. I think they would actually get screamed at and threatened more than getting tipped, but they could actually demand that you pay them while they molest you. How's that for tyranny? That could be happening in America. There's no reason why they couldn't do that right now. You know, have your $20 bill ready to go right through airport security, hand it over to an agent in anticipation of your pat down. Crazy stuff. Now, again, this is a list of things that could happen. None of these have happened yet. I just want to be very clear. But these are a list of things that could happen if we don't limit the TSA's expansion of power. This is a rogue government agency that is rising to power like we saw in the 1930s in Nazi Germany, like we saw in the old Soviet Union with the secret police. They're rising to power, and unless we stand up and put a stop to it and put some reasonable limits on their power, or at least make the TSA recognize the limits that are already in place with the Constitution and with the Bill of Rights, then these are things that the TSA could attempt to do because they're out of control, because they recognize no limits to their power. All right, number 8, the TSA could demand veto power over all state legislation involving security. And then any states that did not comply with that veto power granting to the TSA could be boycotted by the TSA, which means no air traffic in and out of your state. Think about that. The TSA could just say, hey, we need oversight on any security-related legislation, and if you don't pass the laws that we want you to pass, then we're not going to let your airports operate. I mean, they're close to doing that right now. I think they did that to Texas. I think number 8 has already happened. I guess we got to modify the list. 9 things that could happen, 1 thing that just did happen because they threatened Texas with a complete air traffic blockade. Number 9, the TSA could set up official TSA naked inspection rooms at the airports where the officials take travelers into the back room and make them disrobe. Now, look, they're already doing the naked body scanners. Now, they could claim, well, the scanner saw a shadow of something next to your hip, or the scanner doesn't have quite enough resolution, or we don't want to expose you to too much radiation, so we don't want to scan you again. Instead, we're going to make you disrobe in the back room. Well, they could do that. They could demand that. I mean, if you're out there listening to this and thinking that they wouldn't do that, then my question to you is, what would stop them? What would stop them? What would you do to stand up and stop them if they began having the naked security disrobe rooms in the back of the security checkpoints? I mean, what's to stop them from doing that right now? And the answer is nothing. Number 10, they could visit local malls and sporting arenas and businesses, and they could demand that local business owners pay TSA protection fees. That's right. If they want to keep their events safe from terrorists, if you don't want your sporting arena bombed by terrorists, they might say, you need to pay a TSA protection fee. Now, if that sounds familiar, it's because that's, of course, what every mob organization did in the history of the mob throughout America and many other countries. It was a protection fee. They knock on your door, hey, business owner, give us 10% of your profits, or there might be an accident. Somebody might bomb your restaurant or your mall. You got to pay us a protection fee, and then we'll keep you safe. That's how rackets work. And that's why the TSA is really an illegal organization. I think it's a criminal organization right now. And if they could get into these realms And these realms could really threaten our freedoms. So that's why we've got to start standing up right now against the TSA and demanding that they abide by the limits set out under the Constitution and under the Bill of Rights, the limits to government power that are already in place. Because those limits are the only thing that guarantee our freedom. Whoa, how are we doing?